Here we go.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is
not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.
I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Did you think no one was watching?
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
your mission.
Suppose we go where no man has gone before.
To reclaim the American dream.
To be given the right of human beings to be afforded equal rights and equal opportunities.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
You've certainly come to the right place.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, of course, your host, Benjamin Dixon. This is, in my opinion, and of course, this would be my opinion, but this is the #1 morning political commentary show. Because not only am I going to give you progressivism, but I'm going to give you the truth. And I'm going to tell you when we're wrong. I'm going to tell you when we're right. And we're right most of the time. But it is Monday morning, September 21st, 2015. It is a beautiful day, and I cannot wait to get out of here to go out there. But I'm so excited about spending time with you. So thank you so much for joining us. There are a lot of things going on this morning as I sip my Earl Grey tea. And I might be a little, I might have too much. Earl Grey is kind of powerful, to be honest with you. But I want to go over some polls. A lot of things are changing in the polls. I want to talk about some polls. I want to talk about Bill Maher and Richard Dawkins and Ahmed Mohammed's clock. And of course, Ben Carson's comments over the weekend about Islam, that America shouldn't elect an Islamic president, a Muslim president. I want to go over a couple of economic. There's a lot that I want to go over, and I really don't want to spend time giving you the syllabus at the top. So I have included inside of the description on YouTube everything that I read from, and this was just my reading this morning, to be honest with you. My notes are there, and so if you want to follow along there, I didn't get a chance to post the notes on the internet show, but I will post the notes there after the show is over or during a commercial. I may be able to get that done. So first things first, new polls out of Forbes Zogby poll, and which has actually a little different results than the CNN ORC poll. But this is all following the Republican debate that took place on Friday. And I called it. I could tell exactly by what happened and how everything played out on Thursday that Donald Trump would take a little hit. You can go back and watch, see my show from last week right after. It was on Friday morning. Or was it Thursday morning? Who knows? Donald Trump took a small hit, according to the CNN ORC poll. Fiorina moved to second place, according to that same poll, and Carson went down to third place, and I called it. Trump is at 24%, down from 31%. Carly Fiorina, she impressed a lot of people. She's up to 15% from 3%, according to the CNN poll, which is a big jump, so she's surging. And Ben Carson is down 14% from 19%, and the establishment is nowhere to be found. That's consistent across both polls. They're on the poll, but they're polling at 1, 2, and 3%. So they're relatively speaking nowhere to be found. According to the Forbes Zogby poll, which is interesting, they still have Trump at #1, of course, and he's up to 33%. So according to that poll, he's done better since the debate, which most people said he didn't win. But according to Forbes Zogby, he's up to 33%. Carson is still at 13% rather, and Fiorina is at 7%. So there's some triangulation that needs to take place between those, between the multiple polls. Those are just two of the many polls that are out there. But the first 1, 2, and 3 spots are held by the same people: Trump, Carson, and Fiorina, all outsiders, all giving the establishment heartburn. It seems no matter what the establishment does, no matter what messages they send out, forget about Marco Rubio, forget about Jeb Bush. Right now, it is the season of political outsiders. And this is evident. This is bearing out in these opinion polls. We see a similar trend in Democratic circles, Bernie Sanders, but it's still an establishment year for Democrats. which is problematic for a lot of reasons, because you do see a surging Bernie Sanders, but he is fighting against the political powerhouse that is Hillary Clinton. The surge is great, but right now he still stands at 24% nationwide compared to Hillary Clinton's 42%. Joe Biden, who hasn't even declared yet, is at 22% nationwide, and then Martin O'Malley is in a distant fourth place of 1%. So it is still an establishment uphill battle for Sanders compared to the Republican primaries, which they have completely devastated the concept of inevitability. They've completely devastated the presupposed front runner, Jeb Bush. He is almost nowhere to be found. And the Republicans have clearly stated to the establishment that they do not want an establishment candidate. And this will be one of the few times that you will ever hear me applaud conservatives and Republicans. I applaud them. They're wrong, right? They are absolutely wrong in terms of their ideology, their economic policies, what they plan to do socially. Everything that they stand for is absolutely wrong. But in this, they've gotten it right. They have said, we refuse to take the inevitable choice that the establishment wants to push down our throats, which was Jeb Bush, right? And then even the establishment outsider newcomer, not outsider, the establishment newcomer of Marco Rubio, they're saying we don't want you either. So they have opted for the top three, even post the second debate: Trump, Carson, and Fiorina in one poll, and then Trump, Fiorina, and Carson in the second poll. So kudos to the Republicans for understanding how to destroy the establishment, because one thing, and when I say destroy, I mean to keep the establishment on its toes, keep the establishment serving the people, because the establishment in both parties has ultimately become the problem. And we'll get into this in the economic section. But if you really look at what's going on in the nation, the fact that unemployment could be going down, but the median income has not gone up, the fact that most people are still underemployed, part-time employed, taking minimum wage jobs, the middle class is suffering despite all of these positive economic indicators, that is part and parcel because of the establishment being from Wall Street. Both parties, the establishment of both parties, are beholden to Wall Street. Now, the solutions that the Republicans want us to take are absolutely wrong and will actually exacerbate the problem, which is hilarity in itself. But at least they realize that there's something wrong. They don't have the right solution, but at least they know the problem. It doesn't look like we understand the problem on the Democratic side of the equation, because we are running headlong into the inevitable establishment candidate who is absolutely in bed. Well, I mean, however you want to cut it, Hillary Clinton is establishment, and Hillary Clinton is a part of the Wall Street inner circle. All right. So that's the poll review. It'll be interesting to see how this shapes up. One thing that I want to drop here in political commentary is the fact that Hillary Clinton had this type of lead before, and after a very rigorous season of debates in 2008, that lead tanked. And this is the reason many people are insisting that we have more than 6 Democratic debates. I believe in 2008, there were somewhere closer to 10, between 8 and 10. I don't have the exact number before me, but in each of those debates, President Obama, now President Obama, then Senator Obama, chipped away at Hillary Clinton's positions. He chipped away at her progressive and liberal bona fides, however you pronounce it. He chipped away at her lead, ultimately winning the nomination. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz from South Florida, where I was from, I know her politics well. I don't know her, but I know her politics very well. She's a very Washington establishment. She's the DNC chairwoman. She has been pro-Hillary since long before 2008, but definitely in 2008, she was a co-chairman of her national campaign. She is in bed with the party, and she has limited the number of debates to 6. Now, my first gut reaction, in comparison to the ridiculousness that is the Republican primary circus and debates, my first gut reaction was, you know what? 6 is not too bad. Do we really need 10? But then when you think about the reasons, the only legitimate reasons we have dropped from 10 to 6 between 2008 and 2016, 2015 cycle, it could only be because they do not want Hillary Clinton on stage that many times to repeat what happened in 2008. I'm sorry. I don't see, there's no cost, right? There's very little cost involved that would not be overcome by all the revenues that they can find from this. I'm sorry that if they're not monetizing these debates, then they don't need to be running anything. So, and don't tell me about costs. Don't tell me about political interest, because people are interested. Don't talk about the campaign and taking people off the campaign trail and trying to respect the candidate's time. This is the most efficient use of their time. There will be no better use of their time than to be able to speak in front of millions of people and convey their message. So there is no reason, there's no valid reason other than the fact that Wasserman Schultz saw President Obama, then Senator Obama, take over Hillary Clinton as a result of the debates. And so they're fearful of, I think that they're fearful of how former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will perform in these debates. And more importantly, not just Hillary Clinton, it's how convincing will Bernie Sanders be in those platforms. Here's the thing. The more people hear Bernie Sanders, the less they are afraid of the pejorative of socialism when he explains what he's talking about. When he explains, we're really talking about child care for the tax dollars that we're already paying. We're really talking about health care, more access. Even though we have Obamacare, there could be more access for the tax dollars that we're paying, for paid maternity leave, for the tax dollars that we're already paying. We're not talking about taking private property from people and making all of industry state run, right? This is the fear mongering of the Republicans and some Democrats, right? There are some Democrats who are pounding the drums of the fear of socialism to beat back against Bernie Sanders. The problem is the more people hear about what he's saying, the more they realize it's not radical at all. It's not a proletariat revolution at all. It is simply getting the best usage for our tax dollars that will benefit the middle class and will ultimately benefit the overall economy. You cannot put money into the middle class and not stimulate the entire economy. It is not possible. We have a 70% consumer-driven economy. And I know people like to debate against that, which is why I put an article with a rebuttal to my statement in the notes. Read it for yourself and look how they break down and they try to dissect the fact that we are a 70% consumer economy. And once you get done reading it, you realize we're still a 70% driven economy. Despite the breakdown, it is still consumer driven. All of that to say, the proposals that Bernie Sanders is offering is so far from socialist in the fear-mongering sense, so far from communism entirely, and it's simply about making our tax investment in the middle class to benefit the middle class, but also to benefit America. How difficult is that to understand? That when you have a class of people who overwhelmingly spend all of their income simply to survive and to get ahead and to invest in college and to send their kids to college and to invest in a small business, our money in the middle class cycles through us completely. And that money goes directly into the economy, which is a stimulant. It stimulates the economy. So everything that Bernie Sanders is proposing and a lot of what progressives in general. There are some policies in Hillary. I'm not going to just completely poo-poo on Hillary's economic policies. There are some reasonable things in there that would also stimulate the middle class, which would stimulate the overall economy. But let people tell it. You would think that Bernie Sanders is starting this proletariat revolution to overthrow the free market and replace it with a command economy, which shows you that they're not only prone to hyperbole, but they're prone to idiocy, because the very people who are opposing his ideas are the very people who would benefit from it the most. And that is your average middle-class American. And I think one of the reasons the DNC does not want to have more debates is not simply that they're afraid that Hillary would not perform as well. They're afraid that people, the average American, Republican and progressive, would begin to hear more clearly the simple message of what our tax dollars should be accomplishing for us. And I think it's really that simple. And that shows you the difference between the establishment and the progressive movement. The establishment, I'm going to be honest with you. I had this argument as I get ready to go to my first break. I had this argument all over the weekend since last Thursday, which was kind of a moot point because we agreed on one simple fact. The establishment of the Democratic Party is just as in bed with Wall Street as the establishment of the Republican Party. Wall Street is not dumb. If they're going to invest, if they're going to lobby, if they're going to give campaign donations, they're going to give it on both sides of the equations so that they can hedge their bet, right? It's all about hedging. Do not believe for one moment that Democratic insiders are not just as funded by Wall Street. And maybe just as is not the right identifier, but they are their donations rival. Right? The donations rival. Democratic insiders are just as in bed and beholden and cater to Wall Street as Republicans. And the Republican side of the equation, according to these polls, have rejected that notion. It is Democrats who have not yet rejected the establishment. And that is amazing to me when you consider that we are the ones who are ostensibly progressive. So my question is to all of the people who, and here's the thing. Okay, one last thing. I said I was going to break, but I'm not going to break yet because I want to make it clear. We're talking about the primaries here. The most likely voters in primaries. The most likely voters in primaries are always party players and people who are pro-establishment. A lot of times we try to identify primary voters as being on the far extremes. I disagree with that premise because primary voters generally represent people who caucus and attend or a part of their local party chapter. Those people are not necessarily the most radical people. Those people are usually people who are working inside of the machine that is their national party. So you may look at them as saying they're more active and therefore you think that they're more radical or they're more progressive, but that's not necessarily the case. They are the people, and we're talking about the Democratic side, they are the people who are working actively inside of the machine, and the machine of both parties are the establishment, and they are in bed with Wall Street. So as we look at these polls, it's not an indicator that America has rejected Bernie Sanders and is accepting Hillary Clinton. Let me say that again. It's not as though the Democratic progressive side of America has rejected Bernie Sanders. It's that the political insiders have rejected Bernie Sanders at 42% for Hillary Clinton. That's all it is saying. The remedy to that would be for everyone who has a gripe with the establishment, everyone who fancies themselves to be a progressive, and everyone who is tired of, if I can use this cliche, Wall Street taking precedent over Main Street. The remedy is for you people to get involved in the primaries. Take these polls. Don't hang up on them when they call. And I have to take my own advice because I just hung up on somebody the other day, but I will take my own advice there. Duly noted. But get active in these primaries and let the people see what America really thinks, not what the establishment parties in America really thinks. All right, folks, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, I may do a little bit more on political and some economics, but I do want to get into Ben Carson and his Islamophobic idiocy, and this interesting and fascinating intersection that atheists find themselves with evangelical right-wing nut jobs. There's an intersection that they actually agree on, and that would be an indicator to me that I might be wrong on something. If I agree on something with the right-wing nut jobs, then something might be wrong with my position. So I'm going to deal with Bill Maher, Richard Dawkins, and Ahmed's clock when I come back after I deal with Ben Carson. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. You can join the conversation, 857-600-0518. We'll be back after this.
When you're ready to lose weight, why count, track, and worry over every meal? Jenny Craig makes it simple. Just walk into a neighborhood Jenny Craig center or give us a call. You'll meet your dedicated personal consultant who helps you reach your goals. Together, you'll pick out delicious Jenny Craig foods that you'll love and design a menu that fits your life. And the best part is that you can get started losing weight right away. Don't wait any longer to take advantage of our best offer ever. Call 1-800-JENNY20 or visit jennycraig.com.
This is the sound of salmonella gyrating on your undercooked chicken. And it looks like Mom might be taking it out a little early. Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. So use a thermometer to cook each type of meat to the right temperature. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
On the next episode of Recipes for Disaster.
I'm making beef sliders for my friend Sandy. Nana taught me to always pull meat off the grill early so it's extra juicy.
Use a food thermometer to ensure ground beef is 160 degrees, or you could make people really sick. Sandy didn't think twice about the slider she ate until yoga class, when a nasty case of food poisoning turned her downward-facing dog into upward-moving lunch. Watch Recipes for Disaster at foodsafety.gov and learn the steps Maria unwittingly leaves out. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
Warm fleece on a cool day. I want to be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you're hearing his voice, you're hearing the voice of reason.
Welcome back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So apparently, the roofing contractors have decided to start their redoing our roof. So you will hear some obscenely loud noises in the background. There's nothing I can do about it today, folks, but we're going to keep trucking. I want to skip over. I'm going to do a segment at the end about the Fed's decisions to not raise interest rates, the effects that has on the economy, particularly for the middle class. I think that's a very important conversation to have, especially in regards to some of the political positions of Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders. And I wanted to put it here, but I need to skip over that for a second because I want to go to Ben Carson. Ben Carson, and I want you to hear what he said on Meet the Press in his own words, in context, and then I want to give some commentary on it.
May wrap this up by finally dealing with what's been going on, Donald Trump, and a deal with a questioner that claimed that the president was Muslim. Let me ask you the question this way: should a president's faith matter? Should your faith matter to voters?
Well, I guess it depends on what that faith is. If it's inconsistent with the values and principles of America, then of course it should matter. But if it fits within the realm of America and consistent with the Constitution, no problem.
So,
all right, let me break it up right there for two reasons. One, for Google's algorithm. and then 2, because it's a good place to break. This Ben Carson is, I'm trying not to be very simple and insulting, but I don't really know if I can avoid it. Here, Ben Carson is demonstrating to us his mental problems. The fact that he may not be as intelligent as his profession dictated. We think that brain surgeons are uber intelligent. I won't comment on the look on his face that he constantly has, a constant look of constipation and confusion, right? Which is an indicator to me that there's something not clicking in his brain at the speed that it should to be on a national stage, right? That's just kind of my own personal pejorative and insult. But I'm talking about the fact that he is intentionally calculating this statement that actually came out of his mouth. He thought about this before he said it. And he thinks that he's right. He thinks that a person's faith, despite the Constitution, mind you, he believes that a person's faith should be a factor in whether or not they should be president of the United States. Now, I will give him some credit because he is trying to weave it and say that it's relative to a person's decision, right? But that's not actually what he conveyed. The message that he conveyed is that a person, and there's that noise, I don't know if you hear it, a person should not be a Muslim if they want to be the president of the United States. I don't know how much more I can make this plain. Conservatives are only interested in the Constitution if it serves their needs. They will put the Constitution to the side at a drop of a dime for the opportunity to fight back against something that does not neatly fit inside of their conservative ideology, their conservative Christian ideology. All of this faux patriotism about constitutional rights, it is really a farce to say we only want the Constitution to serve us. We do not want the Constitution to serve other people, because you cannot, Ben Carson, make this statement and call yourself a person who respects the Constitution when the Constitution clearly says there will be no religious test for governmental office. Period. It did not give any caveats. It did not give any explanations. It just simply said there is no religious test, notwithstanding the fact that there are plenty of examples. And he's trying to use, Ben Carson is trying to use this cape of, and he's going to say this next. Matter of fact, let me put a pin and a period right there. Let's let Ben Carson finish speaking for himself, and I'll give you my next point after that.
Do you believe that Islam is consistent with the Constitution?
No, I don't. I do not. I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I absolutely would not agree with that.
And would you ever consider voting for a Muslim for Congress?
Congress is a different story, but it depends on who that Muslim is and what their policies are, just as it depends on what anybody else says, and if there's somebody who's of any faith, but they say things and their life has been consistent with things that will elevate this nation and make it possible for everybody to succeed and bring peace and harmony, then I'm with them.
Okay, enough of that. Enough of that, Ben Carson. I'm sorry. I can't just let that. I can't let that ride anymore. There's a little bit more after that. Yes. I wonder why those boos are a lot later than my applause. I have to get a new computer over there. I can't let that ride anymore, because now he's making the assertion that Islam is that somehow Islam is has less peace written in the text than Christianity, right? When I can clearly quote plenty of scriptures that are just as barbaric and just as vitriolic and warmongering as any faith. So he's saying that he does not believe that Islam is consistent with the Constitution. The problem is no religion is really consistent with the Constitution except the Constitution, right? Most religions dictate that you proselytize your faith and that you like especially the Old Testament of the Bible, we're talking about making the world a theocracy, which is completely contradictory to the Constitution. So his entire argument here falls apart when you realize that he doesn't even know his own faith. He doesn't know the history and the legacy of the Bible as written in the text. And the goal of most conservatives is always to make America a Christian nation by force, through law, by refusing people the right to get married in Kentucky with Kim Davis. They want to control America, and they want those controls to be based on biblical law. That is a theocracy. That is contradictory to the Constitution of the United States. So Ben Carson clearly does not understand his faith. He does not understand the Constitution, and he constantly looks like he's got gas and he can't figure out what to do with it. He looks so uncomfortable no matter where he is. And maybe he's just because he's out of his element. I don't know. Maybe he's just bitten off more than he can chew, but he's going headlong into this idiocy of the political religion that conservative Christianity has become, and it's paying off. He still has a decent second place position according to the Zogby poll, and he has a decent third place position according to the CNN poll. And that shows you the makeup of the Republican Party, the conservative base right now. They are made up of people who believe in Trump and people who believe in Ben Carson's whatever type of theocratic world that he wants to make, those conservative evangelical Christians who want the Constitution to work for them and nobody else. And this entire conversation came as a result of Donald Trump refusing to repudiate that question that came out. We did a show on that Friday, that question that came out last week about at a New Hampshire rally where the supporters said, oh, Donald Trump, President Obama is a Muslim and he's not even American. Donald Trump has decided not to repudiate that because he says that, here's his excuse, that President Obama would not stand up for him. Well, you know what? President Obama is not running for office anymore. President Obama has nothing to prove or to impress. Your job as a political candidate is to win as many people as possible. And if you think that leaving these questions on the table from your supporters, questions of the birther conspiracy all over again, questions of President Obama's faith, and questions of whether or not their faith should matter in America in the first place. He feels that it is more beneficial for him not to repudiate this guy than it would be for him to repudiate this guy. This should tell you everything you need to know about his supporters, because otherwise he would have repudiated him. If Donald Trump did not think that he would lose voters by repudiating that fellow, then he would have done it, because he's a very calculating man. Even though he comes off as a buffoon, he's a very meticulous and fastidious and calculating man. And everything he says is, I won't say planned, but it's calculated. And so he does know full well that if he repudiates the guy from New Hampshire, that he will lose that crazy base. And that crazy base is what's carrying him as far as he is right now. The crazy base is the difference between him being in the number 1 spot and the number 2 or the number 3 spot. And this is the culture, this is the climate, and this is the environment that Republicans, modern Republicans, exist in right now today. And is there any wonder that they're doubling down on their idiocy? Because their idiocy is alienating Mexicans, Hispanics in general, right? But specifically Mexicans. They're alienating my other minorities, African Americans. They've already alienated us for the last 40 years, right? They're alienating Muslims, anyone of Arab, Middle Eastern descent. All they can really do at this point, they're alienating women. Carly Fiorina's attack on Planned Parenthood, or really all of their incessant attacks on Planned Parenthood, they are alienating anyone who is not a white, conservative, Christian male. And so the only way they stand a chance in the primaries, forget the general election. They're not going to win the general election unless something ridiculous happens. But their only chance to win the primaries is to double down on the idiocy that so many white conservative Christian males wait for and long for and their counterparts, right? There are some women who absolutely love the same rhetoric and vitriol, even when it's contrary to their own personal best interest. All right, folks, I'm going to take a quick break here because they are really, I don't know if you can hear it, but they're really throwing me off at this point. They are just pounding away on the roof. So let's take a really quick break, and hopefully that'll give them time to get away. And when we come back, I want to go and finish the conversation on Bill Maher, Richard Dawkins, and then we'll circle back to the economic conversation. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. You guys hold tight while I go yell out the window and tell these guys to chill out.
You're tuned in to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Join the conversation, 857-600-0518.
Looking for the right business opportunity? Need the right product, the right marketing plan, and the absolute best training in the world? Well, look no further. The Elite Team. Every leader in time excels. They believe the key ingredients in becoming successful in life and in business are just a keystroke away. Go to www.eliteteamsite.com. That's www.eliteteamsite.com. The Elite Team has a system in place that will move you closer to achieving your goals and dreams. Visit www.eliteteamsite.com. or TonyFlemingEnterprises.com today.
College is important, but it can also be expensive. College Planning Services is a group of educators, administrators, counselors, and other licensed professionals that work together to provide the necessary services, networks, and information to reach students that are serious about getting a college education. College Planning Services partners with financial institutions, corporate sponsors, and other major players in the global market to strategize in building a pool of information regarding financial aid, scholarships, and funding information to assist students in preparing to access the essential resources to build upon their path to an educational future. Learn more at collegeplanningtoday.com and let us help you start your college career.
Do you want to take your business to the next level? Ultimate Business Solutions provides the support you need to increase your customer base and sell more products and services online. Specializing in graphic arts, web development, and internet marketing, Ultimate Business Solutions creates the face of your business. If you're looking for a custom logo, dynamic website, or popping marketing material, call Ultimate Business Solutions today at 404-704-2197 or visit www.ultimatebizsolutions.com. Ultimate Business Solutions. Let us create your future.
Do you have tax issues, owe back taxes, or need tax relief? Contact L&B Tax Service today. L&B offers you over 15 years of expertise and first-class tax service for individuals, professionals, and business owners. With nationwide service, you can easily find a location near you. Contact one of our tax professionals through our website, lbtaxservice.com. That's www.lbtaxservice.com. L&B Tax Service Incorporated. Tax professionals that you can trust.
You've tuned in to the Benjamin Dixon Show.
All right, folks. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Omni Mortar, for saying that they can barely hear the noise. So, all right, I won't worry about it, even though it is driving me batty. Right. I like to get in the flow of things and just go with it, and the constant pounding, it's probably one of the few things that could throw me off. But thank you for that message. There is this insane intersection that some of my atheist friends, actually, let me rephrase that, because most of my atheist friends are really reasonable. And I think I may have one who actually agrees with Bill Maher on this, and a different one that agrees with Richard Dawkins on this. But there's this weird intersection that some atheists find themselves agreeing with right-wing nut jobs, conservative, evangelical, Christian nut jobs. And I called them nut jobs because there is a difference, right? There are reasonable people can be found anywhere, but that extreme right who finds a way to vilify every single thing about Islam, right? As though their faith isn't riddled with baggage. Our faith isn't riddled with violent baggage, not only 1,000 years ago, but just 50 years ago. Hell, I'm sure Dylan Roof identifies himself as a Christian, right? There are some atheists who actually find themselves on an intersection that agree with these crazies. And anytime I find myself agreeing with somebody who is a completely lost, I won't say they're a complete moron or a complete buffoon, but they're completely lost on the issue, I have to take a second and reflect on my own personal life to say, okay, maybe they could be right, but maybe not. And maybe I just need to check my own personal bigotries. All right, enough of the introduction. Bill Maher, as you already know, you've seen the video. I posted a link in my YouTube description. Bill Maher is actually taking the side of the school with the Ahmad, Mohammed clock issue. He's also taking the easy route of saying, well, it looked like a bomb. And it's the young Islamists who are around the world blowing stuff up. Okay, then Sunday, Richard Dawkins tweeted out a video of a crazy right-wing conservative, by the way, basically saying that Ahmad is I keep saying Ahmad, but Ahmed is a fraud, and that he wanted to go viral, and he did this on purpose because it's not really a clock that he built. It's really a clock that he took apart and reassembled inside of a briefcase. And then saying that he wanted to use that as a means of becoming the next Muslim hero of America because of the climate of political correctness towards Islam. Is it that difficult to see that while that teacher may have had a reason to take that device or call in people for that device to come look at that device, right? Let's not be intentionally obtuse. If it's a strange looking device, with one exception, I'm going to put a caveat there, but if it's a strange looking device, you open it up and your instinct is that it's a bomb, then maybe it is only reasonable, not maybe, it's only reasonable for you to go through and have someone look at it. Here's the question. What gave her the instinct to believe that this was a bomb when the student was telling you, no, this is a clock? You cannot tell me that if it had been a white student or a Arab name sounding student, right? Because he is, you do have blacks that are Muslims, you have whites that are Muslims, but you understand what I'm saying, all right? Let's not be, I don't have to give so many caveats. What I'm saying is, if his name had not been Mohammed and Ahmed, would the teacher have instinctively thought that this device from a 14-year-old student who I guess is brand new school year, so maybe she doesn't know him so well, so let's be fair there, but is your instinct to actually go to a bomb? And if it is, why? Well, Bill Maher already gave the reason, because across the world, there are a bunch of young teenage Islamist extremists who are blowing ish up, according to Bill Maher. Bill, that is the quintessential definition of racial profiling. It doesn't mean that we lay down our arms and we lay down all of our common sense and we just ignore everything just so that we can be politically correct. But it does mean that we must recognize that there are institutional factors that cause us to look at young Muslim students and teenagers as possible terrorists, but not look at the Dylan Roofs of the world as possible terrorists. When, look at the links in my description, there are more people who have died from extreme right Christian terrorism since 9/11 than those who have been killed by Islamic terrorism in the United States. So if we are going to be okay with having this general suspicion of, because he's young, he's Muslim, and young Muslims do this, then why are we not walking around with that assumption that he's young, he's white, and he's conservative? Young white conservatives do that. That's because that's not how America is made up. And that is the problem. And for Bill Maher and Richard Dawkins not to see this and to agree with extreme right-wing evangelical nut jobs who would do anything and everything to vilify Islam, to me speaks volumes of their inability to see clearly through their own last vestige of bigotry and the things that all, I won't even call it privilege. We all have a chip on our shoulder against someone. And sometimes that chip on the shoulder causes us to not see clearly. I have a chip on my shoulder against conservatism. I think I try to give them a fair shot, but every now and then somebody has to remind me that I may be blaming conservatism on something when it's not really their fault in this one small 1% of the case, but 99% of all the other cases, conservatism is to blame, right? But because of the chip on my shoulder I have towards conservatism, sometimes it's possible that I don't see clearly. And this is amazing that somebody that I usually like, with the exception of some of his, all of his positions on anti-vaxxing, Bill Maher, besides that, he's like one of the few atheists who is so against Christianity that I actually can tolerate, right? Because I actually, he makes valid points. He makes good arguments. And he usually concedes when even a Christian has a good argument. Look at religiosity, right? The entire movie is about his I don't want to call it an attack, but his opinion on faith in general, right? And in that movie, whenever he heard something that was actually pretty rational, he actually agreed with it. He dismissed it, but he said that makes sense. It's amazing that even he can see something in Christianity, but when you go over to Islam, he's like, I'm with the right-wing nut jobs on this one. Islam is the problem. And I won't say anything else about it. I'm not going to say anything else about it. I just think it's amazing. I think it's indicative of the fact that all of us are blinded on something. Nobody is so enlightened on everything that they cannot make mistakes. And I understand. I understand if something looks suspicious, fine, report it. He shouldn't have been arrested. But my question is, why did that look suspicious? Why was her instinct to say this is a bomb when the student said, no, this is a clock? And that natural instinct is something that is embedded in our culture, despite the evidence to the contrary, which shows that it's not young militant Islamists that are the most violent in America post 9/11. It's young white conservative Christian right-wing nut jobs who are blowing stuff up in America. On the international scene, that's something else. All right. Here we go. Let's go back over to the economic conversation. Same thing for Richard Dawkins. Everything I said for Bill Maher absolutely applies to Richard Dawkins. I want to go back over to the economic debate, and then I'm going to get out of here because those guys upstairs, I know they have a job to do. I'm going to give them. I'm going to leave them alone. They have a job to do. So last week, the Fed decided not to raise interest rates again. And generally, most people think this is a good thing because the economy is so sluggish. And we see that most job growth in the economy, even though unemployment is going down, most job growth is going in part-time jobs, minimum wage jobs. And so there is two economies essentially emerging in the United States where the middle class is being drained. And there are more people in poverty, there are more people in the working poor, and there are fewer people who are moving up the ladder. And the question that's relevant with regard to them not raising the interest rates is the effect that this has on the middle class. The most immediate effect that this has on the middle class is that we who have money in savings accounts and investments, in the investments that we have access to, mind you, right? The investments that we can, our money market accounts, our savings, our long-term savings, we are not getting any interest worth anything. this is very problematic for people who are retired, living on their savings, need those savings to generate income each year. And if interest remains low, it is hurting us. Who it's benefiting, without question, it's benefiting large banks, it's benefiting hedge fund managers, it's benefiting Wall Street, who has unlimited amounts of cash at their disposal for basically free. I believe the interest rate is 0.6%. So that's basically free. And I was reading an article this morning that made it really simple for us to understand. And it's in the links. I can't remember which one because there's so many there. But if you think about people who use money for business, and you think about people who use money to build, not only invest, but money is actually their tools. Money is what they use to build. Consider like the people, okay, they're making so much noise. Let me use them. My roofers, right? They need shingles. They need trucks. They need ladders. They need equipment. They have all of these things that they need to make their business run. Well, for Wall Street and a lot of the top 1%, their equipment is money. Now, where these roofers on my roof who are going at it right now, where they have to spend money and take out a loan to get this equipment, and they're probably paying between if they have a really great interest rate, a credit score for their business, then maybe they can get 4%, 5%. But on average, most of us are going to get 6 or 7%. And if you're taking a high risk loan, you're going to get 12, 13%, and forget about the 25% that you get on your credit card, right? Those are the type of interest rates that we pay for our capital. That's what we have to pay to invest in these computers that I run on here, for them to invest in their gear. Whereas people on Wall Street, they are paying 0.6%, which is essentially free money. Imagine someone coming to you and saying, here is all of the equipment that you need, and the only thing it's going to cost you is 0.6%. That would change. Let's go one step further. Maybe you're not starting a business. Let's look at your student loans. Imagine if the interest rate that you had to pay on your student loans was only 0.6% and you had unlimited access to it. Here we have a very imbalanced system where those of us who have money and are saving and trying to do what we think is the right thing, we're putting our money in the banks. But because the Fed has maintained this low interest rate since 2008, we are seeing absolutely no returns on the money that we put in the bank. And then you have the other side of the equation where Wall Street has unlimited access to all of the tools that they would ever need to make more money. This is what I talked about last week in terms of capital goes to capital. People with wealth are can so much more easily get access to more wealth because they can get access to capital that we cannot get access to. It is that much more difficult for us to get ahead because we don't even have access to those dollars. Yes, you can get a lower interest rate on your home, but how many people are actually eligible to get homes now that the credit crunch we're still living in the credit crunch, even though money is available. We can't get home loans, not the majority of us. You can get a car loan, but you're going to pay some serious interest rate compared to what the federal funds rate actually is. So where we have opportunities to grow our money in the way that the system has been telling us for years to grow our money, we have been living for the last 7 going on 8 years in an almost interest-free world when it comes to the money that we put in the bank. And then the money that the Wall Street gets to take and turn around and invest, they are able to get it at almost no money whatsoever. Can anyone see clearly how the system is baked against us? The deck is stacked against us. And I know a lot of people say things all the time about, and I hear this all the time from libertarians and conservatives, that, oh, you just don't work hard enough. Okay, I want you to think about this. And I'm going to use these guys on my roof for an example. These guys are out here at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they've been pounding away, and they're going to pound away to 8 o'clock tonight. They don't leave. They were here yesterday, and they were here over the weekend, right? They are out there working harder than most people who sit behind a desk will ever work. compared to a person whose work is literally digits and zeros shifting money. Yes, there's a level of education that you need to attain that, but more than education, it's money that you need access to. And now imagine that the government has, well, the government by virtue of the Fed has opened the floodgates and said, here's all of the investment and equipment that you will ever need to get ahead. And now that they have everything at their disposal, they have so much money at their disposal that they can afford to make $1 million mistakes, $1 billion mistakes, and still not fall cave underneath the pressure of their mistake. When, answer me this, how many of you can make a $500 mistake? I'm going to wait for that answer. When you consider the slim margin that the middle class and the working poor operate on, that if we sneeze hard between periods, we are not only going to get behind, we're going to get buried because of this system that's waiting on you to go into that overdraft, by the way, right? We don't have room to make a single mistake, let alone step out and invest when everyone is saying, oh, we want you to be a business owner. Well, where are we going to get the funds to do it when we can't get loans? And when we get loans, we're getting them at 12%. Or if we have to use our credit card, we're getting them at 13 to 25%, right? So we're burying ourselves while we're trying to chase this American dream when an entirely different economy, hyperbolically speaking, is able to get access to unlimited amounts of money for free. And there is a reason that we see all of this money awash in Wall Street, but we still see this very tepid, very slow, very lethargic recovery. That's because for the last 30 years, especially since 2008, we have put all of our eggs in the financial markets. We have put all of our investments in the top 1% in the corporations. We have poured all of our resources there, and we have come to the point where they have done all they can do. The jobs that they create, they're not creating, the overwhelming number of jobs that they're creating are not jobs that are going to help you get from the middle class to the upper middle class. They're minimum wage jobs, right? They're not creating the type of jobs that Republicans have been yelling and saying that they're going to create. That's why we see unemployment can go down to 5%, but we have so many people still living in the working poor. We have made the investment in the wrong place for so long, and now Wall Street is saying there's nothing else we can do. That's why the Fed is not going to raise interest rates, because our economy is locked in this vicious cycle. We are pouring money into the financial sector, but the financial sector has done all it can do or all it wants to do. And the results of what it wants to do are part-time jobs for the average American. When 70% of our economy is consumer driven. And so we've been on the supply side. We've been on the supply side nonsense for so long that we can't even imagine. We think that Bernie Sanders is a radical communist. We can't even imagine a time where we would invest in the consumer who would actually go out and purchase these products that they are building up and that they're creating vast amounts of inventory on. But socialism, but freedom, right? Pay no attention to the fact that we've had near zero interest rates for the past 8 years, pouring into an economic paradigm that has met its capacity, that has created all of the full-time jobs that it wants to create or can create. That's debatable, right? But they have done all that they can, and they have milked all that they can. So now all they're doing is just a numbers game and they're not even innovating. There's no innovation left. That's because we have poured money into that sector for 30 plus years, and it's tapped out. That's why the Fed cannot raise interest rates, because if they did, it will bring a halt to the very modest, mediocre recovery that we've had in the first place. And that's because since 2008, we've thought it best to put the money in Wall Street instead of putting it into the 70% of us who are consumers, who are driving this economy. I don't know. I'm just at this point, I don't know if there's any way to make it any more clear. If you want to grow the economy, grow the middle class. If you want to grow and kick this recession, this recovery into high gear, put your money into the 70% of this economy that's going to consume, not because we're just out there rabid consumers. Some of us are, because Black Friday is on the way. I get that. But consumption is simply the things that we need to survive. And if we make $60,000 a year, we're living in times where it costs $70,000 a year. So there's not a dime that can come through the American middle class that will not go right back into the economy and stimulate the economy. Whereas we have poured trillions of dollars into Wall Street, and this is the best recovery we can get. Now, tell me again about socialism and why it doesn't work. Tell me again about trickle-down economics, supply-side economics, and why it's working so great. Insert sarcasm. You guys have a great day.
And until that moment comes when we, the Americans, are able to accept the fact that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, that I am not a ward of America. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment,
that we are brothers. It's not a question of Jews or Christians or Muslims. We're all in the same boat.
We need each other.
Love is a condition so powerful. It may be that which holds the stars in the firmament.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
Love.
Until this moment.
I come to you today to say that we can build a newer and better nation. I say we can do so, that we must do so, and that we will do so.
You've tuned in to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at www.thebenjamindixonshow.com.